I think there's a natural liquidity mismatch, I think, between retail investors are typically looking for something more short-term versus these private funds that are typically more long-term hold funds. And I think the regulators, getting them comfortable with that liquidity mismatch, I think is one of the hurdles that some of these regulated structures have had to contend with. So you've got the emergence of these LTIFs and LTAF type structures to cater for the liquidity requirements. But I still think there's much to do to ensure that the regulators are comfortable. But fundamentally, from a governance perspective, it's really the same, right? The work that we do as an administrator, the transfer agency element, the reporting requirements, the ensuring that the governance is there, that's entirely the same, I feel, regardless of the types of fund structures that are being formulated.
Well, I think, I would pivot that a little bit and say there is expertise required in actually managing liquidity. So, for instance, we have a lot of experience with LTIFs, LTAFs, interval funds in the U.S., private market BDCs that all require that operational infrastructure to effectuate really a compliant strategy. So I do think there is a rules-based regime in terms of DNA that needs to be followed. And, we have that DNA, and therefore we're able to support funds in a compliant way across these structures that, some are emerging, some are new, and some have existed for a long time, yet haven't been utilized because the demand curve hasn't been there. So I think it's kind of an interesting time because we basically had some of these structures before, like interval funds in the US, but you actually didn't see many private equity funds utilize interval funds to actually distribute. But now you're seeing the demand curve increase, and then all of a sudden, oh, well, you know what, let's launch an interval fund. Mm-hmm. And that actually is exactly what you just talked about in terms of being able to manage liquidity through a particular regulatory framework. Mm-hmm. So I think, we're in a great position today because the demand curve is there, and then we have that historic really knowledge and infrastructure around these different governance principles. And again, the other part is consultative. Mm-hmm. So I think, when we're sitting in front of clients and they're saying, you know what, we want to actually access the retail market. Can you tell us about the ways you could potentially do this? We can sit there and actually have a very informed discussion with them in terms of laying out what the options are, laying out the pros and cons, and then importantly, actually taking them through a project plan that allows them to execute against that strategy.